Naija, how markets? Buy shares of your favorite Nigerian companies on Cowrywise and become a co-owner.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics in partnership with Cowrywise. Cowrywise is a digital-first fund manager licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria. And the license is for them to facilitate investments in different asset classes, especially mutual funds. Yeah, I always say if you don't have, time to invest by yourself or you can't do investments yourself, just give your money to a mutual fund. And so they also help with investing in mutual funds. Recently, Cowrywise launched Stocks by Cowrywise to facilitate investment in Nigerian stocks. So simply put, if you want to invest in stocks and some of the things that you hear me say on this show, you can do that via Cowrywise. They have aggregated stocks of over 140 companies in different industries, sectors, and indexes. So investors like me and you have access to real-time market data, liquidity ratings, popularly known as order books, and historical market performances of each business on its platform. Click the link in the comment section to find out more about how you can invest in Nigerian stocks via Cowrywise. They are partnering with us at Nairametrics Follow the Money. So good partnership. And we use Cowrywise as well. Yeah, so talking about stocks, what a week it was for the Nigerian exchange, because it appears we have now sustained another positive week, albeit slightly, slight gain, but appears that we are back at above 140,000 points. It's been a grueling September so far, but it looks like we've managed to swing back to profits in September because we are up 0.18% month to date. I know it's still 12th, 13th of September or 14th. I mean, whichever day you're watching this, but it is still a gain. This week, we've gained 1.13%, and year to date, stocks are up 36.5%, way higher than inflation rate. So the stock market is still the market to beat when it comes to where you want to invest your money, in Nigeria at least. Third quarter, which has been tough this month, but has had a remarkable July and August, stocks are up about 17.14%. So far. So that has been a market currently still slightly below or just around the 90 trillion market cap zone, but kind of looks like stocks are coming back and gearing up for the earnings season, which is just a few weeks away, because at the end of September, stocks are going to be releasing their results. Most companies are going to be releasing their results, and it's an opportunity to see how well some of your favorite stocks have done. What a better time to take position, don't you think? Yeah, because now that share prices are kind of, falling, it's probably time for you to start take position. And if you are a follower of my personal blog, followthemoney.ng, then you would have seen the two stocks that were recommended this week. Yeah, there were two stocks recommended this week. I'm not don't expect me to say it here. You would have to go subscribe to get to see those stocks. And the good thing about this Cowrywise app as well is that you can actually do your own research, because when you just check some of the stocks to talk about, you go there, you can see all the information you want about that stock and decide for yourself whether it's something you want to invest in. One thing I like to look at when I am checking stocks, particularly foreign stocks, is looking at their forecast, because outside this country and most developed markets, companies always give us an idea of what their results will look like. What is their projection? Now, this is important because when you know what the company's projection is, you can then do your own research as well and say, you know what, I don't think you guys are going to hit that number, or you guys might probably beat your own estimates, and then that determines whether you want to take a position in that stock or not. And so this has been that season. This week particularly, we've seen a number of companies push out their earnings forecast for the fourth quarter of the year. Now, this is very important because the earnings forecast for the fourth quarter of the year gives us an idea of how much profit that company thinks is going to make for the full year. And so as for a smart investor like us, if we know what they're going to do, because they've already told us their third quarter forecast, and we know third quarter numbers are coming out soon. So, and we already know what the half year result is. So with the half year result plus the third quarter and fourth quarter forecast, get a good idea of how good this company's result will be. So I'm going to be talking about some of these companies on today's Follow the Money. And the first one is Geregu Power. And they do have a somewhat bullish forecast. So the company said it's forecasting a post-tax profit of 12.1 billion for the fourth quarter of the year. Fourth quarter of the year being October to December 2025. And that is slightly higher than the 11.7 billion forecast they have for the third quarter of 2025, which, by the way, it's pending release because we haven't seen the actual numbers yet. So for third quarter, they are projecting 11.7 billion. And so plus or minus, depending on what the third quarter numbers are, add that to the full year numbers and fourth quarter numbers, then you get a picture of where I'm going to. And don't worry, I've done that math already for you. So if this company does deliver the third quarter projection and its fourth quarter projection, and then you add that to the half year numbers that we already know, they could be on the hook to deliver a 27.4 billion naira profit. Now, let's just put it into perspective. So Q1 forecast, they said they were forecasting 11.3 billion and they actually delivered 10.4 billion. So they didn't beat their Q1 forecast. Now in Q2, they forecasted 8.6 billion profits, but they did 9.7 billion. So they beat their own estimates, which is good. And so it kind of looks like Geregu are quite close enough to being able to know what their numbers would look like. So our bet is that they could hit this 27.4 billion, which, by the way, is more than, what am I even saying? It's 44 billion, I beg your pardon, because if you add 10.9 billion plus 10.4 billion plus 9.7 billion plus the forecast for Q3, which is 11.7 billion, and the forecast for Q4, which is 12.1 billion, then that company could be doing 44 billion at the end of 2025. And that compares to 27.4 billion that they did this same period last year. I mean, the full year 2024. So that is not doubling their profit, but that's a significant profitability increase for that company. So kind of looks like Geregu is gearing up for some good year for its investors. And the good thing about this company is that it's one of those high dividend paying companies because it does pay most of its profits out as dividend. But is it a good stock you want to buy now based on its price? It's a solidly run company. They've been delivering profits for year after year. They pay dividend every year. But sometimes you want to check the share price of a stock, and the share price is at 1,140 naira. I do own some of the stock, just for full disclosure. But at that price, I really don't know if it's, if there's that much room for upside. It could go to 1.2 or 1.3, but at the moment, I would just think that, maybe you just want to wait. Even though I expect that its profit numbers are going to go up, like I said, 44 billion. But I kind of think that has been priced into that share price already. And so limited room for upside here. But if you're somebody who loves dividend, then and you want to earn dividend like early next year, you plan for that, then maybe you want to buy Geregu shares because they do pay dividend. Another company that also releases forecast is TotalEnergies, and TotalEnergies, that's the owners of Total, downstream side of Total, not the upstream. Total is listed on the exchange and has been one of those better performing companies over the last 2-3 years. But it kind of looks like it's struggling from what I'm seeing. So TotalEnergies Marketing Nigeria PLC, as they are listed on the exchange, projected 2.2 billion naira post-tax loss for the fourth quarter of 2025, far worse than the 543 million loss that they forecasted for Q3 2023. And of course, we haven't seen the real numbers for Q2 2023. So it's a little disturbing that they are even forecasting wider losses for the fourth quarter of the year. And what does this mean in the whole picture? So let's sort of put it together. In the first quarter of 2025, Total projected 2.4 billion profit, but they swung to a 120 million naira loss. In the second quarter of 2025, they projected 1.4 billion profit. They delivered a 2.7 billion loss. So they have basically been missing their estimates for the first and second quarter of 2025. So even this Q3 forecast of 543 million, which they put out, 543 million profit, which they put out earlier, I doubt this is going to happen because it's looking like this is a loss season for that downstream company. And so no surprise, in the fourth quarter, they've now projected 2.2 billion naira loss. And that got me worried and got me thinking, what exactly is going on with Total and what is the problem here? We kind of dug into the numbers at Nairametrics, and it appears in the first quarter of 2025, admin costs hit 17.7 billion, up 22.7%. Staff cost alone was 6.4 billion, consultancy fees 2.2 billion. So looks like Total is racking up significant operating expenses, and their cost of sale is also pretty high. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot going on in the downstream sector with Dangote Refinery coming in and essentially cornering that downstream market. I kind of feel like this is impacting on Total's margins because it's a lot more competitive environment, and Dangote Refinery seems to be undercutting all these guys with pricing and competition. And so it's pretty difficult for most of them to sort of, operate at the moment, like profitably. That's what competition does. And now that, if companies are making losses, there's somebody else making a gain. And it kind of looks like Nigerians are the ones making a gain at the moment because people are being able to buy fuel at some kind of considerable price. So Total numbers looking pretty bad at the moment. Remember what I said earlier, they're one of those better companies that have been doing well over the years, but things don't seem too good for Total yet. And that is a bit of a challenge here. And the share price is currently at 640 naira per share. I kind of think it's overvalued, even though it's down 8.3% year to date. But with what I see, it looks like that share price is likely going to take a serious beating, except something magical happens or something else happens. Like maybe they come announce something that maybe like excites the market. But at the moment, not looking good for shareholders of Total. All right, so we're going to take just a short break, and when I'm back, I'm going to talk about C&I Leasing. They did release their numbers during the week, and we're going to talk about AIICO as well, another insurance company that released their own, projections as well. C&I Leasing did release their results, and AIICO a projection. And when we're back, we're going to touch on that.
Naija, how markets? Buy shares of your favorite Nigerian companies on Cowrywise and become a co-owner.
All right, welcome back to Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics in partnership, of course, with Cowrywise. So if you're looking for a quick app that you want to use to invest in stocks, you want to try Cowrywise. It's very simple. Just put it on your mobile phone, download it on your App Store, and you can invest in your stocks. Of course, you can also check the history of those stocks, share prices, and a whole lot of details and information that you need. You can even place orders on there, 50,000 units, 100,000 units, 10,000 units, whatever. And you can see what people are also ordering as well. A lot of people don't seem to realize that when you're investing in stocks, it's always important to always check two things, right? The offer and the bid. The offer is usually what people want to sell. People who want to sell typically place offer, and then people who want to buy are the one that place bids. So in stock market, parlance, when you have a lot more offer than bid, we tend to call that net offer. And when there's a net offer, share prices often tend to fall because there's a lot more sellers than buyers. But when you have more bids than offering, then that's a net bid. So share prices tend to go up. But what if you have all offering and no bid at all? That's what we call a full offer. And in such instances, the share prices really just go down because there's nobody buying. So it's just demand and supply. So it's very likely that you can bid at a much lower price and you can get that stock. And then when there's a full bid, that means nobody wants to sell that stock because they're expecting something really great to happen, or they expect that the share price could even go up, could go higher. And during full bids, share prices tend to gain 10% on the day, the full amount of gain that you can get. So you get to see all those when you use the Cowrywise app. So it's one of those apps that you can use to invest in the Nigerian stock market. All right. So I was going to touch on AIICO when I get back. So AIICO also released its forecast earnings during the week, and slightly different from the way others, do there. So others tend to give you quarterly earnings, but AIICO, for some reason, tends to just bundle Q1 and Q2 together. I'm not sure why they do that. Anyways, the company did release his earnings, his projections, like I said, and they're projecting profit after tax of 19.5 billion for the year ended 2025. According to the company, if it does achieve this profit, it would have surpassed the 15 billion it did in 2024. So, interesting to see whether it can achieve that. In the first quarter of the year, it projected 2.4 billion in profit after tax, and then ended up achieving 4.6 billion. And then in the first half of the year, remember I said they don't usually give you quarterly and quarterly. So first half of the year, that would have included first quarter numbers as second quarter numbers. They projected 7.3 billion, and they beat that estimate by far with 11.2 billion reported as half-year profits. Now, for the first 9 months, they are projecting an even higher projection of 14.2 billion, and that is kind of like 3 billion or so higher than what they projected, where they currently are in terms of their half-year numbers. Because we already know their half-year numbers, they did 11.2 billion. So if they do 14 billion in 9 months, that means they would have added 3 billion to their third quarter numbers. And then, so full year numbers, they're looking at doing 19.5 billion. Massive turnaround massive improvement for AIICO. The revenue has been growing this year from what we've seen, revenue up 45% year on year to 32.8 billion. This is mostly driven by a 12% increase in its gross premiums or gross written premiums. And so the company is basically riding high. Of course, we do know that the news of share of insurance companies likely to raise capital is one of those major boosts that AIICO has, and AIICO is one of those veteran insurance companies that you've had in Nigeria. I do own a slight stake in AIICO shares, full disclosure. However, I kind of feel like at the current share price of 4.17 naira, kind of seems a little bit in that overvalued territory for me. Share price is already up 191% year to date. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like that's more than double already. So I don't know if it's something that we can beat, but I don't know how much upside is remaining there, even with those profit numbers that we're projecting to see. I don't know. I mean, think about it. It's saying it's going to do 19.5 billion in full year profit, which will be higher than the 15 billion it did before. So it's not even double. So I'm not sure where all this valuation is coming from. I mean, I do understand that AIICO has been undervalued for years, though, but beyond this 4 naira per share, I don't know, anything might change, but for now, doesn't look like one stock that I want to recommend for a buy. Something else happened during the week. C&I Leasing released or announced it was going to pay dividend during we just recently concluded AGM and declared final dividend of 10 kobo per share. So if you're a shareholder of C&I Leasing, you might want to go check because you have dividend to receive of 10 naira. 10 kobo per share. I beg your pardon. The payout received 100% approval of its shareholders. The company says it has about 442 shareholders. So everybody voted for dividend, and no surprises, we just like dividend here in Nigeria. By the way, the dividend they are paying of 10 kobo per share is more than double the 5 kobo they did a year ago. So that's higher dividend for its shareholders. So the total dividend amount is the total dividend amount that'll be paid, it's 294 million naira. I didn't say billion, million naira. And the share price is 6 naira 50 kobo. So if you kind of like do, 10 kobo on 6 naira 50 kobo, that gives you a dividend yield of 1.54%. That's really paltry, man. In Nigeria, I don't like dividend yield less than 10%, to be honest, because we're in a country with high inflation rate. So why would I take dividend yield that is, way less than even savings deposit now? But it's different if you bought the stock maybe way cheaper. So my dividend yield might be different from your dividend yield. But if you're going to buy the stock based on the current share price of 6 naira 50 kobo, then you're getting way lower dividend yield. And in terms of dividend payout ratio, how much of his dividend he paid out of his profit, it's 18.3% or so. By the way, shareholders of C&I Leasing has given a green light to acquire a 71% stake in Lisa Freak Logistics, a Ghanaian-based company that is into HR outsourcing, fleet management, direct motoring, and vehicle tracking services. By the way, you should check one of my podcasts a couple of weeks ago. It did run on my Coffee Table podcast. I did interview the GMD CEO of C&I Leasing. Interested to hear his insight into how that company is executing. Now, the shareholders of C&I Leasing also approved plans for the company to raise 15 billion via corporate bond issuance. Proceeds are going to go towards debt expansion and refinancing. So that's also one thing I've been seeing a lot. Companies borrowing from the debt market and using that money to refinance their existing loans. That is pretty much expensive. So that kind of makes sense for a lot of them. All right, so that is C&I Leasing. Like I said, at 6 naira, 6 kobo per share, stock is up 75%. It's kind of overvalued for me, man. I'm sure you guys are saying, well, how come everything you're saying is overvalued? Like, that's just how I feel. It's the stocks that I've reviewed so far are kind of like overvalued. But if you want to check the ones that I have recommended for you buy, you got to go to ftm.ng, followthemoney.ng, and to see them. And if you want to buy those stocks, I suggest you get that Cowrywise app. All right. So next, I want to talk about is IMG. So IMG is an acronym for Industrial and Medical Gas, and that is a pharmaceutical, medical company that's listed on the exchange. And they did open a right issue that is meant to run from October 22nd, from August 22nd to October 2nd this year. So it is, right issues are usually for shareholders only. And the company says it's offering 199.8 million ordinary shares at 32 naira per share on the basis of 2 new shares for every 5 held. That's kind of like 40% or thereabout of. So if you own 100 shares, you can buy a maximum of 40 based on the right issue. And the share price, from what we gather, or the offer, is coming at a 24% discount because the stock was trading at about 39.85 kobo and they are selling at 32 naira per share. Now, we did an analysis on Nairametrics on this right issue and trying to figure out whether this is something that is, kind of like looking at. And because you got to have the bull case and the bear case. So let's start with the bull case. So the bull case is, over the last 5 years, revenue has grown at a constant annual growth rate of 21%. So the company has been growing its top line, hitting 26.7 billion. That's solid revenue numbers. Profits even grew faster at a 34% compounded annual growth rate, CAGR. Hitting 1.62 billion. Cash flow from operations also solid at 2.9 billion over the same period. This company has production plants across the country, in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and in Kaduna. And they've got a very strong presence in healthcare, industrial gases, in Nigeria. So it's a company that can really scale given how integrated it is within this medical space. Now, there is a bear case, like I mentioned. In terms of the first half of this year, revenues rose 19% to 4.2 billion, but profit after tax did plunge 69% to 476 million. And that was also because of FX gains, because the FX gains that they had last year shrank to 240 million versus 1.2 billion the year before. So things not looking that rosy at the moment. Operating cash flow also turned negative to 281 million, which means it's running on some kind of overdraft, or it's not just generating enough cash flow compared to what it was before. So there is, FX tailwinds that the company has to deal with, and cash flow could be a challenge, which probably explains why it's going for the right issue now. In terms of its valuation, even after its share price drop, I remember I told you that they're saying at a discount. This stock is trading at a whopping 33 times its earnings. And that's almost double the industry average of 17 times. So for every earnings per share, or for every profit this company is making, you're paying 33 times that. So think about it. If you make 100 naira in profit, then it means somebody's going to pay you 33 times that 100 naira just to own that company. So pretty high in terms of the price to earnings ratio. I mean, price to earnings ratio do make sense if it's a company that has fast earnings growth. And so when the right issue is done, like I said, it's 22 for 5, which is a 40%. So expect a 40% dilution for people who don't take up the right at all. In terms of dividend, they have paid 80 kobo. They paid 80 kobo in 2024, up from 50 kobo the year before. That implies a dividend yield of 2.4%, well below the market average. So for me, for existing shareholders, I kind of feel like it will make sense if you maybe subscribe, if you're somebody who, you've been with IMG for a while, so you probably know the intricacies of the business and what's going on. But for someone who's outside and looking at this discount as an opportunity, because you can also still buy their shares, even if you don't want to buy their rights. But that discount, doesn't look really appealing. Again, I don't know. It's just what's happening. There's no stock right now that I can see to value. When I come next week, we're going to be looking at a couple of other stocks as well that I'm putting side by side. Corn oil and eternal oil. Those are two downstream sectors that I want to look at as well. And of course, we're going to be looking at a whole lot of other things that happen, during the week. This has been Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics, in partnership with Cowrywise, your go-to app for downloading or for buying stocks in the Nigerian stock market. It's licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria. So it's a valid application that you can own on your phone to buy stock. So you don't need to use your laptop. You don't need to use you don't need to call any stockbroker. You can just use your phone, and then you can just go in there and buy whatever stock that you want to buy. That easy. So kind of looks very good in terms of integration, right? So we talk about stocks and then you can buy it. All right. If you have any questions for me, the comment section, do drop it. People have been telling me that I don't respond that often, so I'm going to respond a lot more to your comments as well. And of course, if you want more on our buy actions, follow our blog, ftm.ng, followthemoney.ng. It is purely subscription based. It's not free to read, purely subscription based. And like I always say, do your own research. And of course, new episode of Drinks and Mics dropped already. So if you haven't checked it, you want to go to our YouTube channel, Nairametrics TV on YouTube, and watch the latest episode of Drinks and Mics. We talked a lot about stuff. We talked about Naira. We talked about debt. We talked about unions. Do we really need the unions? A whole lot of stuff on Drinks and Mics. Another exciting episode that we shot. And of course, I had the usual gang with me and a new guest as well. So Drinks and Mics is currently on. And of course, there are a whole lot of other podcasts on Nairametrics TV that you can check. So the coffee table is out. I spoke with a very, very interesting individual, someone who has been to 99 countries with a Nigerian passport. You do want to hear her story. This has been Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics. Until we do this again next week, do have a profitable week ahead. Bye.